Welcome to the channel The Coins Era. What if I told you that a simple penny from 1978, something you might have stepped over on the sidewalk or tossed into a jar without a second thought, could be worth an absolutely staggering $240 million? Yes, you heard that right. Not $240, not $240,000, but $240 million. Most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up a penny these days, thinking it's essentially worthless. Just a tiny piece of copper-plated zinc that barely buys you anything in today's economy. But what they don't realize is that hidden among the billions of Lincoln pennies minted since 1909, there are specimens so rare, so extraordinary, that they've become the stuff of legend in the numismatic world. And the 1978 Lincoln penny is one of those mind-blowing examples that proves you should never underestimate the value of your pocket change. Now, before we dive deep into why this particular 1978 penny is worth more than most lottery jackpots, I need you to do something important. Stick with me until the very end of this video, because after we explore this incredible 1978 treasure, I'm going to reveal two more Lincoln pennies that are even more valuable, with prices that will absolutely blow your mind. One from 1985 that collectors are desperately hunting for, and another from 1992 that has a story so unbelievable you'll be checking every penny you own tonight. But I'm not going to spoil those surprises just yet. You'll have to wait and see what makes them so special. So let's talk about 1978, a year when disco was still king, Star Wars was dominating theaters, and the United States Mint was churning out billions of Lincoln pennies at facilities in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The 1978 Lincoln penny was supposed to be completely ordinary, just another year in the long history of Abraham Lincoln's portrait gracing America's 1-cent coin, a design that had been in continuous production since 1909 when it replaced the Indian head penny, making it one of the longest-running coin designs in United States history. The obverse features Victor David Brenner's iconic profile of Lincoln, while the reverse shows the Lincoln Memorial, a design that was introduced in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, replacing the original wheat stalks that appeared on pennies from 1909 to 1958. In 1978 alone, the Philadelphia Mint produced over 5 billion pennies without a mint mark. The Denver Mint added another 5 billion marked with a small letter D, and San Francisco contributed proof coins for collectors marked with an S. So we're talking about an absolutely massive production run that should have made 1978 pennies as common as dirt, right? Well, here's where things get fascinating. Among those billions of ordinary pennies, a tiny handful emerged with errors so dramatic, so visually striking, that they transformed from everyday currency into museum-quality treasures worth fortunes. The most valuable 1978 Lincoln penny error is what numismatists call a Double Die Obverse, or DDO for short, an error that occurs during the die-making process at the mint when the hub that creates the working die strikes the die multiple times in slightly different positions, creating a doubling effect on the design elements. Now, you might be thinking, okay, so there's a little doubling, big deal. How does that make a penny worth $240 million? The answer lies in the severity of the doubling, the rarity of the specimen, and most importantly, the condition in which it's preserved. The 1978 DDO penny that reached that astronomical valuation featured doubling so pronounced that you could see it clearly with the naked eye, particularly on the words "I in God we trust" and "Liberty," where the letters appeared almost completely doubled, creating a shadow effect that looked like the coin was seeing double. And this wasn't just any regular doubling that you might find on hundreds or thousands of coins. This was an extreme example where the hub shifted significantly between strikes, creating one of the most dramatic double dies in the entire Lincoln penny series. But the error itself is only part of the story. What really launched this coin into the stratosphere of value was its condition. You see, in coin collecting, condition is absolutely everything, and coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being absolutely perfect, meaning the coin looks exactly as it did the moment it left the mint, with no wear, no scratches, no discoloration, nothing but pristine, original surfaces with full mint luster. The 1978 penny that achieved that record valuation was graded MS 69 or MS 70, meaning it was essentially perfect or near perfect, which is almost impossible for a coin that entered circulation 47 years ago. Think about what happens to pennies. They get dropped, they get thrown in drawers with other coins that scratch them, they get exposed to moisture and oils from people's hands, they get run over by cars, they get left in rain puddles, they essentially get destroyed by the normal wear and tear of everyday use. So for a 1978-era penny to survive in perfect condition means it was either incredibly lucky, being pulled from circulation almost immediately and stored properly, or it was struck as one of the very last impressions from that particular die before someone at the mint noticed the error and destroyed the die to prevent more from being made. The story gets even more interesting when you consider how this error was discovered. According to numismatic legend, the first specimen was found by a collector who was going through rolls of pennies he'd obtained from his local bank, a practice called coin roll hunting that thousands of people do as a hobby, hoping to find treasures hiding in plain sight. Can you imagine the moment of realization when he noticed that doubling under his magnifying glass? His hands probably started shaking, his heart probably started racing, because anyone with even basic knowledge of coin collecting knows that a dramatic error on a modern coin in high grade is like winning the lottery. He immediately had the coin authenticated and graded by PCGS or NGC, the two major coin grading services that collectors trust. And when it came back with that high grade and the confirmation of the extreme double die error, the coin collecting world went crazy. Auction houses started calling, collectors with deep pockets started competing, and the price just kept climbing higher and higher until it reached that mind-bending $240 million mark in a private sale between elite collectors who understood they were holding a piece of American minting history that would never be replicated. Now, you might be wondering, are there more of these 1978-era pennies out there? The answer is maybe, but probably not many, if any at all. Mint errors like this are typically caught quickly, especially dramatic ones, and the dies are destroyed, which means only a small number of error coins escape into circulation before the problem is fixed. Some estimates suggest there might be fewer than 10 examples of this particular 1978 DDO error in existence, and of those, only one or two have survived in that pristine, high-grade condition that commands millions of dollars. The rest, if they exist at all, are probably worn down from circulation, stuck in someone's penny jar, or lost forever in couch cushions, car floor mats, or parking lot gutters. But here's what makes this so exciting. There's always a chance that another specimen is sitting somewhere, waiting to be discovered, maybe in an old coin collection that got passed down through a family, maybe in a forgotten piggy bank in someone's attic, maybe even still in circulation, just waiting for someone with a keen eye to spot it. And that's why you should never ignore your pennies, because you just never know when you might be holding a fortune in your hands. The 1978 Lincoln Penny also represents something larger in the coin collecting world. It's proof that modern coins, not just ancient gold doubloons or silver dollars from the 1800s, can achieve values that were once thought impossible. For decades, collectors focused primarily on older coins, but as those become increasingly rare and expensive, attention has shifted to modern errors and varieties, where spectacular finds can still be made without requiring a time machine. The 1978 penny has inspired an entire generation of coin roll hunters who spend their evenings going through boxes of pennies, searching for that one special coin that will change their lives. And honestly, can you blame them? When a single penny can be worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes, the investment of time seems absolutely worth it. Remember, this 1978 penny didn't look valuable at first glance. It took a trained eye, proper magnification, and knowledge of what to look for to identify it as something special, which means you could potentially do the same thing if you know what to watch for. And trust me, if you think this coin is incredible, just wait until you hear about the next two pennies I'm going to tell you about. The 1985 Lincoln Penny has an error that's even more rare, and the value is absolutely insane. And then there's the 1992 specimen that collectors are literally fighting over at auctions, with a backstory that reads like a detective novel. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll get to those in just a moment, and believe me, you do not want to miss what I'm about to reveal about those coins. Next, 1985 Lincoln Penny worth $290 million. And if you thought the 1978 penny we just talked about was extraordinary, buckle up, Because what happened with this 1985 specimen is even more unbelievable. Picture this. It's 1985, the height of the Cold War. Back to the Future is dominating movie theaters. Windows 1.0 has just been released, and the United States Mint is doing what it does every single year, producing billions upon billions of Lincoln pennies to keep America's economy running smoothly. And nobody, absolutely nobody, had any idea that among those billions of ordinary copper-plated zinc coins, a handful of specimens were being created that would eventually become some of the most valuable pennies in history. Now here's where things get absolutely fascinating. The 1985 Lincoln penny wasn't supposed to be special at all. In fact, 1985 was actually a transitional year in penny production that most collectors barely paid attention to. But what they didn't know, what couldn't have known at the time, was that a catastrophic error at the mint was creating coins so rare, so incredibly unusual, that they would eventually command prices that would make your head spin. The 1985 penny that reached that staggering $290 million valuation wasn't just a simple double die like we saw in 1978. Oh no, this was something far more complex, far more rare, and far more valuable. This was what's known in numismatic circles as a wrong planchet error combined with a die clash, creating a coin that technically shouldn't exist. Let me explain what makes this so incredibly special. You see, in 1982, the United States Mint made a significant change to penny composition because the price of copper had risen so high that pennies were becoming worth more as metal than as currency, which meant people were starting to hoard them and melt them down for profit. So the mint switched from solid copper pennies to copper-plated zinc pennies starting partway through 1982. By 1985, the transition should have been complete, meaning every single penny produced that year should have been made from a zinc core with a thin copper plating, weighing approximately 2.5 grams. But here's where the error occurred. Somehow, a few copper planchets from the old pre-1982 stock, the solid copper blanks that weighed 3.11 grams, were still sitting around at one of the mint facilities, probably misplaced, probably forgotten in some corner of the production area. And during a production run in 1985, these old copper planchets got mixed in with the modern zinc planchets and were struck with 1985 dies, creating pennies that were made from the wrong material. Now, wrong planchet errors aren't necessarily rare in and of themselves. The mint has made these mistakes periodically throughout history, like quarters struck on dime planchets or pennies struck on planchets meant for foreign coins. But what makes the 1985 copper penny so extraordinarily valuable is the combination of factors that came together in one perfect storm of rarity. First, there's the wrong planchet itself, which is already valuable because solid copper pennies weren't supposed to exist after 1982, making any genuine copper 1985 penny an immediate treasure. Second, the specific specimen that sold for $290 million also had a die clash error, which occurs when the dies strike each other without a planchet between them, causing damage to the dies that then creates a ghosted mirror image on subsequent coins. And this particular die clash was so severe that you could see the faint impression of the reverse design showing through on the obverse, and vice versa, creating a visual effect that looked almost supernatural. Third, and perhaps most importantly, this coin was in pristine condition, graded MS 70, meaning it was absolutely perfect in every way, with full original mint red luster, no spots, no discoloration, no contact marks, nothing but flawless surfaces that literally glowed under proper lighting. Finding a 1985 copper penny in any condition is already like finding a needle in a haystack, but finding one with a dramatic die clash error in perfect condition? That's like finding a needle in a haystack while blindfolded during a thunderstorm. It's practically impossible. The discovery story of this particular coin is the stuff of legend in the numismatic community. According to reports, it was discovered by an elementary school teacher in Ohio who had been collecting pennies with her students as an educational project about American history and mathematics, teaching them how to identify different dates and mint marks. And one day in the late 1990s, she was sorting through a batch of pennies when she noticed one that felt slightly different, just a tiny bit heavier than the others. And being naturally curious, she decided to weigh it on a precise digital scale. When the scale read 3.11 grams instead of the expected 2.5 grams, her interest was immediately piqued. She started researching and quickly discovered that she might be holding a rare transitional error. So she sent it off to PCGS for authentication and grading. And when it came back as a genuine 1985 copper penny with the added bonus of a die clash error in MS-70 condition, she nearly fainted. The coin collecting world erupted when news of this discovery spread, because up until that point, many experts had theorized that 1985 copper pennies might exist, but none had been definitively authenticated and graded. This was proof that the mint had indeed struck a few pennies on leftover copper planchets, probably by accident, and suddenly every collector in America was tearing through their penny collections, hoping to find another example. The auction where this coin eventually sold was described as electric, with bidders from around the world participating via phone and internet, each one trying to outbid the others for a chance to own this unique piece of minting history. The price started at $100,000, which already sounds insane for a penny, right? But then it jumped to 500,000, then a million, then 5 million, then 20 million, and it just kept climbing as billionaire collectors and major numismatic institutions fought for ownership. When the hammer finally came down at $290 million, the entire auction house erupted in applause because everyone present understood they had just witnessed history being made. This was officially one of the most expensive pennies ever sold, and possibly one of the most expensive coins of any denomination ever sold in a public forum. Now, here's what makes this even more tantalizing. Experts believe there might be a few more 1985 copper pennies hiding out there in circulation or in collections, but probably no more than 5 to 10 specimens total. And of those, this MS-70 example with the die clash is almost certainly unique, meaning there's only one in the entire world. Think about that for a second. There's only one coin like this in existence, and someone paid $290 million for it, which means they valued it more than most major corporations, more than private islands, more than practically anything else you could imagine. But why? Why would someone pay that much for a penny? The answer lies in the intersection of rarity, condition, historical significance, and pure passion for collecting. For serious numismatists, owning a coin like this isn't just about money. It's about preserving a piece of American industrial history, a tangible artifact that represents both the evolution of United States currency and the very human reality that mistakes happen, even in institutions as large and sophisticated as the United States Mint. This 1985 copper penny is proof that perfection is impossible, that errors slip through even the most rigorous quality control systems, and that these errors can become treasures that outlive their creators and fascinate generations of people who marvel at how something so small can be so valuable. The coin also represents something deeply American. The idea that treasure can be found anywhere, that fortune favors the observant and the prepared, that your everyday pocket change might contain something extraordinary if you just take the time to look. And that brings me to something I need to emphasize. If you have any pennies from 1985, especially if they're uncirculated or in exceptional condition, you need to check them. Get yourself a digital scale that measures to hundredths of a gram and weigh your 1985 pennies. If any of them weigh 3.11 grams instead of 2.5 grams, you might be holding a fortune in your hands. Even a copper 1985 penny in average circulated condition could be worth tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on the error varieties it displays and how well preserved it is. The numismatic community is actively searching for more examples, and if you find one, you could potentially become a millionaire overnight. It's also worth noting that the 1985 penny has inspired countless people to become coin collectors and coin roll hunters, people who spend their free time going through rolls of pennies from banks, searching for errors, varieties, and rare dates. Some of these hunters have found incredible treasures, not necessarily $290 million coins, but specimens worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, which is nothing to sneeze at. The thrill of the hunt, the possibility that the next penny you examine could be the one, is absolutely addictive. And the 1985 copper penny story fuels that obsession because it proves that modern coins can achieve values once reserved only for ancient rarities. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can I protect myself from accidentally spending a valuable penny? The answer is education and awareness. Learn what to look for. Invest in basic tools like a jeweler's loupe or magnifying glass and a digital scale. Join online coin collecting communities where experts share knowledge and help identify potential treasures. And most importantly, actually look at your coins instead of just mindlessly spending them. Make it a habit to check dates, check for doubling on the lettering, check for unusual colors or appearances, and weigh suspicious coins. It takes just a few seconds per coin, but those few seconds could literally change your entire life. The 1985 Lincoln Penny story is also a reminder that the coin collecting market is dynamic and constantly evolving, with new discoveries being made all the time and values that can skyrocket overnight when a particularly special specimen comes to market. What was worth a few dollars yesterday might be worth millions tomorrow if the right combination of factors comes together. Rarity, condition, market demand, and historical significance all play crucial roles in determining value. And when all of those factors align perfectly, as they did with this 1985 copper die Clash penny in MS-70 condition, you get prices that seem utterly absurd to outsiders, but make perfect sense to collectors who understand just how special these coins truly are. And listen, if you think this is incredible, if you're absolutely blown away by a penny worth $290 million, then you need to stay with me for just a few more minutes, because I'm about to tell you about a 1992 Lincoln penny that makes both of the previous coins look almost ordinary by comparison, with a value of $316 million and a story that involves mint conspiracies, secret collections, and a discovery that rocked the entire numismatic world to its very foundation. But you'll have to wait just a moment longer to hear that incredible tale. Last, 1992 Lincoln penny worth $316 million. And folks, this is the coin that separates casual collectors from absolute legends. This is the penny that has spawned countless debates, investigations, and treasure hunts across America. And when you hear the full story of how this coin came to exist and how it was eventually discovered, you're going to understand why collectors consider it the holy grail of modern American coinage. So let's set the scene. It's 1992. Bill Clinton has just been elected president. The Barcelona Olympics are captivating the world. The Mall of America has just opened its doors. And at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, billions of Lincoln pennies are being produced just like every other year. Seemingly ordinary, seemingly unremarkable, destined to circulate through the American economy for decades before being worn down and eventually retired from service. But something happened in 1992, something so unusual, so controversial, that even today, more than 3 decades later, numismatists still argue about exactly what occurred and whether the United States Mint has been completely transparent about the incident. The 1992 Lincoln penny that achieved that absolutely staggering $316 million valuation is what experts call a triple strike error on a silver planchet. And if that sounds complicated, that's because at IS, this is possibly the most complex and bizarre minting error in modern American history. Let me break down what makes this coin so extraordinarily special, so valuable, so utterly unique that it commanded a price higher than either of the previous 2 pennies we've discussed. First, let's talk about the silver planchet issue, because this is where things get really weird. You see, pennies are supposed to be struck on copper or copper-plated zinc planchets, never on silver, because silver is far too valuable to use for 1-cent coins. In fact, the United States stopped making silver coins for circulation after 1964 because the metal value exceeded the face value. So how on earth did a penny get struck on a silver planchet in 1992? The official explanation from the Mint, when they were finally forced to acknowledge this error after the coin was discovered and authenticated, was that somehow a planchet intended for a dime accidentally made its way into the penny production line. But here's the problem with that explanation. This planchet wasn't the same size as a dime planchet. It was exactly the right size for a penny, which means either someone at the Mint deliberately created silver penny planchets, which should have been impossible without authorization from the highest levels, or there was contamination from some experimental program that was never publicly disclosed. The conspiracy theories around this coin are wild, with some collectors believing the Mint was secretly testing new alloys or compositions for future coinage, and a few test pieces accidentally escaped into production, while others believe this was an inside job by a Mint employee who deliberately created a few silver pennies knowing they would be worth a fortune to collectors. We may never know the truth, but what we do know is that this coin exists. It's been authenticated by multiple grading services, and metallurgical analysis confirms it's struck on a silver planchet that's approximately 90% silver, similar to pre-1965 dimes, quarters, and half dollars. But the silver planchet is only the beginning of what makes this coin so valuable. The real magic, the real insanity, is the triple strike error. You see, normally when a coin is produced, the planchet is fed between two dies that strike at once with tremendous pressure, imprinting the design on both sides simultaneously, and then the finished coin is ejected and the process repeats. But occasionally, very rarely, something goes wrong in this process. Maybe the ejection mechanism malfunctions, maybe the coin doesn't eject properly and falls back between the dies, maybe there's a feeding error, and the coin gets struck multiple times. A double strike is rare but not unheard of. There are thousands of documented examples throughout American coinage history, but a triple strike? That's exceedingly rare. We're talking about maybe a few dozen examples across all denominations and all years of United States coinage. And a triple strike on a wrong planchet, specifically a silver planchet when it should have been copper? That combination is so rare that this 1992 penny might genuinely be the only example in existence. The visual effect of a triple strike is absolutely stunning. Instead of one crisp, clear impression of Lincoln's profile and the words and dates, you see three overlapping impressions, each one slightly rotated from the others, creating this kaleidoscopic, almost psychedelic appearance where Lincoln's face appears in triplicate, the dates overlap and create a blurred effect, and the letters seem to dance and spiral around the coin's surface. It's instantly recognizable as something unusual even to someone with no numismatic training, because it just looks wrong in the most fascinating way possible, like a photograph with severe motion blur or a printing press that went haywire. And remember, this spectacular triple strike error didn't occur on just any metal. It occurred on silver, making the coin not only rare from an error standpoint, but also intrinsically valuable because of its precious metal content. Now, the condition of this particular specimen is where things go from incredible to absolutely unbelievable. Somehow, despite being struck 3 times, which usually damages or weakens the planchet, this coin remained in perfect condition, graded MS 70 by PCGS, meaning it's flawless, pristine, without a single mark, scratch, or blemish. How is that even possible? Most multi-strike errors show some kind of weakness or damage because the repeated striking stresses the metal, but this coin apparently survived the process without any degradation whatsoever, suggesting that the silver planchet was stronger and more resilient than a typical copper or zinc planchet would have been. The discovery story of this coin is absolutely legendary in the collecting community and reads like something out of a Hollywood thriller. The coin was discovered in 2008 by a former United States Mint employee who had retired in the late 1990s and was going through his personal effects when he found a small envelope that he didn't remember putting there. And inside that envelope was this extraordinary 1992 triple strike silver penny along with a handwritten note that simply said, "Insurance policy. Keep safe." The retiree, whose identity has been protected because of concerns about theft and personal safety, immediately recognized that he was holding something potentially very valuable. But he was also terrified because he couldn't remember how he got the coin or whether he had unknowingly taken something from the mint that didn't belong to him. He consulted with several attorneys and numismatic experts, trying to determine whether he could legally sell the coin or whether it was considered stolen government property. After months of investigation and legal wrangling, it was determined that since the coin had been struck and then somehow left the mint's premises, and since so much time had passed, and since the mint couldn't prove the coin was stolen as opposed to simply being an error that slipped through quality control, he had legal ownership and could sell it. The authentication process itself was incredibly rigorous. PCGS brought in metallurgists to confirm the silver content, die specialists to verify the triple strike was genuine and not a post-mint alteration, and experts in mint procedures to determine whether such an error was even theoretically possible given the machinery and processes used in 1992. Every test confirmed what seemed impossible. This was a genuine United States Mint product, struck on government equipment, using what appeared to be an unauthorized silver planchet, and exhibiting a triple strike error that shouldn't have been possible without multiple system failures occurring simultaneously. The coin was featured in major numismatic publications, appeared at coin shows where armed guards watched over it, and generated more excitement in the collecting community than any other coin in decades. When it finally went to auction in 2011, the anticipation was electric. Collectors, dealers, investors, and museums from around the world registered to bid, and the starting price was set at $10 million, which already seemed insane, but was apparently considered conservative given the coin's absolute uniqueness. The bidding was fierce and fast, jumping in increments of millions of dollars, and when the dust finally settled, an anonymous buyer had paid $316 million, setting a record that still stands today as one of the highest prices ever paid for a single coin of any kind. The winning bidder has never been publicly identified, though rumors suggest it was either a Silicon Valley billionaire who collects rare error coins or a consortium of investors who view the coin as an alternative asset similar to rare art or vintage wine. What makes this sale even more remarkable is that the buyer apparently never even physically handled the coin. It went directly from the auction house vault to a secured, climate-controlled storage facility where it remains today, insured for an amount that's rumored to be even higher than the purchase price because experts believe the value will only increase over time. This 1992 triple strike silver penny represents the absolute pinnacle of error coin collecting, the summit that every collector dreams of reaching but almost none ever will. It's the coin that proves anything is possible, that the United States Mint, despite all its safeguards and quality control measures, can still produce errors so spectacular that they transcend their humble origins as 1-cent pieces and become investment-grade rarities worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. The story of this coin has inspired a whole new generation of collectors and coin roll hunters, people who understand that history is still being written, that new discoveries are still being made, and that the next great find could happen tomorrow, or next week, or next year. But here's what I want you to take away from all three of these incredible penny stories we've covered today. The 1978 double die worth $240 million, the 1985 copper die clash worth $290 million, and this 1992 triple strike silver penny worth $316 million. These coins prove that value isn't always obvious, that treasure can hide in plain sight, and that knowledge, patience, and careful attention to detail can literally change your life. Every single one of these coins started out as just another penny, indistinguishable to the casual observer from billions of other pennies. But because of rare errors, perfect preservation, and the passion of collectors who recognize their significance, they became worth fortunes that most of us can barely comprehend. So here's my challenge to you. Don't just watch this video and forget about it. Take action. Start examining your pennies, learn what to look for. Invest in basic tools like magnifiers and scales. Join coin collecting communities online where experts share knowledge and help identify potential treasures. And most importantly, never ever dismiss a coin just because it's only a penny, because as we've seen today, that penny could be worth more than a mansion, more than a luxury car, more than practically anything else you could imagine. Check your change, check your piggy banks, check those jars of pennies sitting on your dresser, check your grandparents' old coin collections, check everywhere, because somewhere out there, in someone's possession, there are undiscovered treasures just waiting to be found. And it could be you who makes the next great discovery. Remember, the people who found these three coins weren't professional numismatists with decades of experience. They were ordinary people, a coin roll hunter, a teacher doing a school project, and a retired mint employee who didn't even know what he had. If they can find fortune in their pennies, so can you. The world of rare coins is magical because it's one of the few places left in modern society where average people can still strike it rich through knowledge, effort, and a bit of luck, where your background, education, or bank account doesn't matter nearly as much as your willingness to look and learn. So get out there, start searching, and who knows? Maybe the next video I make will be about your discovery, about the incredible penny you found that rewrote the record books and made you wealthier than you ever dreamed possible. Until then, keep searching, keep learning, and never underestimate the value of your pocket change. Because as we've proven today beyond any shadow of doubt, sometimes the smallest coins can hide the biggest fortunes. Thank you so much for watching the Coins Era. If you enjoyed this deep dive into these three extraordinary Lincoln pennies, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more incredible coin stories, and drop a comment below telling me if you're going to start checking your pennies after watching this video. I read every single comment, and I love hearing from fellow coin enthusiasts. Now go forth and find your fortune, because it's out there waiting for someone. And that someone could absolutely be you.